We walk through buildings every single day, right? We trust the walls around us, the floors under our feet. But what if that trust is, well, a little misplaced? What if the structures we rely on are hiding some pretty dangerous secrets? Today, we're going to peel back the facade and look at why buildings fail and, more importantly, how sharing the stories of near misses can stop a future catastrophe. And believe it or not, it all kicks off with a single, kind of terrifying number.
Okay, just look at this number, 22 tons. To put that in perspective, that's the weight of about 4 big African elephants. Just let that sink in for a second. 22 tons. Now, what if I told you that entire weight was one single solid block of metal?
Because that 22-ton block, it actually fell. It dropped 5 meters, that's over 16 feet, and came crashing down right onto a public road. And no, this isn't some hypothetical, this was the real-life counterweight from the Plank Lane Bridge over in the UK.
Now, pure luck, and I mean only luck, is why this wasn't a massive tragedy. The road just happened to be closed for maintenance. This was an absolutely terrifying near miss, and it raises a huge question. How many other ticking time bombs like this are out there? And, maybe more importantly, how do we learn from these close calls before our luck finally runs out?
And that really gets to our first point here. See, the problem is that a lot of these dangers are actually hiding in plain sight, kind of concealed by the age and, the apparent strength of the buildings themselves. Let's take a classic example, Scottish tenements. If you've ever seen them, you know they look incredibly sturdy. I mean, they're these huge, stone-built buildings that have been standing for more than 100 years. They just look massive and solid. But if you talk to a structural engineer, they'll tell you that appearance is dangerously misleading.
When you dig into it, you find this startling list of hidden flaws. For instance, a lot of them have really shallow foundations, and the internal and external walls aren't properly tied together. There's this material they used between floors called clinker, which basically acts like a sponge, just holding onto water and causing timber to rot from the inside out. Even something as simple as neglected mortar between the stones or cracked stone supports in bay windows can seriously compromise the whole structure. The big takeaway here is that a building that looks like an absolute fortress can be slowly, quietly falling apart.
But it's not just about old buildings getting tired. Sometimes the greatest dangers are introduced by the very people who are trying to fix them, all because of dangerous shortcuts.
So let's talk about a really common piece of construction equipment, the adjustable steel prop. Its job is super simple, but absolutely vital. It's designed to support a heavy load pushing straight down from above. We call that axial compression. The easiest way to think about it is like balancing a heavy book perfectly on the very top of a stick. Simple, right?
Well, there's this popular shortcut builders sometimes use. It involves an adapter that puts the prop off to one side of the wall instead of directly underneath it. And here's where it gets so dangerous. Instead of that clean, straight-down force, the load now creates this bending force that the prop was never, ever designed to handle. And the result? A tool that can safely hold up several tons suddenly has its capacity slashed to just 340 kilograms. It's an absolute disaster waiting to happen, and it's often marketed as a labor-saving device. Unbelievable! But if you think that's bad, sometimes the shortcuts are just jaw-droppingly reckless. In one case that was reported, a building authority went to a site and found that a contractor had completely gutted a 2-story building. I mean, everything, every single internal wall, the entire first floor, gone. So you're probably wondering, what was holding the roof up over this huge, hollowed-out shell? You'd think steel props, maybe. Nope. The roof was being held up by makeshift props made by, and I am quoting the official report here, nailing floor joists together. They literally just nailed scraps of wood together to support an entire roof.
So yeah, no surprise here, the building was on the verge of collapsing. The authorities had to shut down the public road in front of it immediately until the whole thing could be stabilized. This wasn't some hidden flaw from 100 years ago. This was active, on-site negligence that put the public in very real danger.
Okay, so we've got these historic, hidden vulnerabilities, and we've got modern-day recklessness. How in the world do we fight both? Well, the answer is all about turning these individual mistakes and near misses into collective lessons that the entire industry can learn from.
You see, the real problem has always been that these crucial lessons get lost. An engineer spots a problem, or a builder sees a dangerous shortcut. They might learn from it personally, but that knowledge usually just stops right there. So how do you share these critical warnings without anyone fearing blame or getting sued?
Well, this is where this amazing system called CROSS comes in. It stands for Confidential Reporting on Structural Safety, and the idea is just so powerful in its simplicity. Basically, any construction pro can confidentially report a concern they have. All the identifying details are stripped out to make sure it's totally anonymous. Then, a panel of experts reviews the report, adds their own commentary, and it all gets published for the whole industry to see and learn from.
And look, the reach here is just massive. These lessons don't just get filed away in some dusty cabinet. No, they get sent directly to over 50,000 engineers and construction professionals. It completely transforms a single person's observation into an industry-wide lesson. It means that one confidential report about a makeshift prop or a rotting tenement can literally prevent thousands of other people from making that exact same mistake.
You know, all this talk about being proactive and learning from mistakes, it leads to a really fascinating final question. If we can learn from what's gone wrong in the past, couldn't we find a way to systematically check our buildings for problems in the future?
So one of the engineers who reported on the dangers in those Scottish tenements, he proposed this simple but honestly brilliant idea. What if these buildings had to get an MOT-type appraisal? That's like the mandatory annual safety inspection for cars in the UK, but for buildings, maybe every 5 years.
I mean, just think about that for a second. We all accept that a complex machine like a car needs a regular, professional checkup to be considered safe. Why on earth wouldn't we do that for something far more complex and potentially way more dangerous, like a building? It'd be like a routine health check designed to find all those hidden problems, the rotting wood, the cracking stone, the failing mortar, before they turn into critical failures. And that's really what I want to leave you with. The next time you walk into your office or your apartment building or even a historic landmark, just take a second. What unseen stories do its walls hold? And what unseen risks might be hiding there right now, just waiting for a system that can finally turn a private concern into a life-saving public lesson?